Okay, hello, welcome to this week's webcast. You've got Morgan coming to you hot from Miami. We've got Erin coming to you hot.
Well, it was warmer earlier today. It was about 55 degrees, and then on our way to where I was explaining to Amy that when it's winter and it goes over 40 degrees, everyone in Chicago starts putting on shorts because it's so warm. And then literally on our way to dinner, it was 55 degrees in the car when we left the house. And when we arrived at our destination in Schaumburg, it was 35.
Okay. That's a hell no. I often talk about in my business the hell yes scale of looking at your life from like, oh, hell no to hell yes. And that's a oh, hell no for me. By the way, my dog is doing what dogs do best, which has ignored me all day and is now playing with a squeaky toy while we are recording. Anyways, so we'll do our quick intros and then jump into this week's topic, which I'm super excited to talk about. Our topic this week is the fine line between enabling and supporting. So I'm really excited because I feel like this will give everyone just like an up level in how to create a new kind of love, how to offer a new kind of love, how to offer a new vibration and step into a new vibration in a very conscious way. So I am Morgan Field. I am the founder of Epic Sexy You, which is a movement that has been spreading across the globe, is in 18 countries and counting, and is really just about creating a life you love living, a body you love being in, and a version of you that you just really love being. And I'm a life coach. I am an intuitive. I am an Amazon bestseller, so I wrote a book, Epic Sexy You, and that hit #1 on Amazon. What? So this is a movement that is sweeping across the nation, and super, super pumped about it. And just really, Erin and I have been having these conversations offline, and I was like pretty selfish to keep Erin all to myself. Erin is my bestie, and so we figured, why not share these conversations with the world so that as we grow, as we expand, as we eat some humble pie and we laugh at each other, that you get front row to the show. So Erin, introduce yourself.
I'm Erin. I am, like Morgan said, her bestie. She's mine. We've known each other for about 13 going on 14 years now. Our relationship has evolved through the years. It's been quite fun. I can say it's always been interesting. I am a nurse. I've spent 13, almost 14 years now in some form of clinical critical care. It was first pediatric, then moved to adults. So I've seen the whole gamut of things. I have celiac disease, so I am not only a vegetarian, but I am gluten-free, and that's completely changed and radicalized my health for the better. I am a recovering perfectionist and an aspiring good enoughist, which is a daily practice. And so that's been a lot of fun and sometimes not so fun to go through. I am a mother to one boy on the outside who's 2.5 and one boy who's growing and still sitting in the oven until May, and a wife to a lovely gentleman who sometimes doubles as our tech support for these webisodes. So thank you, John.
This week's webisode is dedicated to John. I told him on the phone he is the definition of support versus enabling. We couldn't get the internet up and going, and he dialed it in and he got it to work. So turns out if you turn things off and you turn them back on, they work. So,
but yeah, I'm joining Morgan in the revolution. When I was a kid, I used to sit around and think about ways I could save the world, and this is definitely one of those. It's a movement, one mind at a time, for their health, both spiritual, emotional, physical.
Yes. And that's the thing too, right? Is a piece of how this came up is Erin and I have both gone on our own journeys of expansion. So in my book, it's the entire journey that I went on. It's from literal hot mess to like complete epicness. And there are certain things that are keeping us stuck. And there are things that when we bring them to our consciousness, they will allow us to elevate into a new vibration that will bring us a life that allows us to have more epicness, more healing body, mind, and soul, and to really step into thrival instead of survival. And so, Erin, you brought up which I love this topic. It's so relevant. I feel like everyone listening is going to get so much out of it. I also know that when you and I jam, we both have our own ahas that we get out of it. Because when we vocalize things out loud, we're like, sounded different in my head. And so tell me a little bit about why you chose this topic.
So this was interesting. I think it came about a day or two after we finished our talk about buying your own bullshit. And we had some pretty awesome ahas during that. And then, which led to even more ahas. And so, when you and I get going, especially in our group texts or with each other, it's really a shame not everybody is privy to those, because they get pretty good with all the stuff we start calling ourselves out on each other. So I was super excited about the whole, sloppy bitch, comfy slob potato unveiling that I figured out when I was like, oh, okay, I'm just eating too many potatoes. So I was telling people about this aha moment I had where I was like, oh my God, guys, this is a perfect example of buying your own bullshit. Listen to how I was buying my own bullshit. Like, this is cool. Look at basically this problem I solved for myself, Like, I was tired eating too many potatoes. Got rid of the potatoes, reined in the carbs, and voila, my energy is way back on point and I'm feeling like $1 million. So I'm sitting and I'm talking with somebody and I'm telling them this and I'm like, yeah, can you believe this? Like, I was eating so many potatoes. Like, I was eating 6 times the amount of potatoes I should be eating. And then the yeah, buts started. Yeah, but you're pregnant. Yeah, but the baby wanted potatoes. Yeah, but it's okay. Like, yeah, but. And I'm like, why are you trying to sell my bullshit back to me? I don't understand. Like, I'm telling you about this happening to me and I'm excited about it. And you're trying to make me feel okay about the potatoes. Like, I'm not beating myself up about the potatoes. Like, I was laughing like you. Like, I'm like, oh shit, I've been going through so many potatoes. So it was funny. And I told a couple people this story and the theme kind of remained the same. I was getting a lot of the yeah, buts. And I think that's when I texted you and I'm like, and we had talked about it before, but I was like, I think it's really important, like, that we talk about being supportive versus enabling, because I think that all of these people have the best intentions, and most of us do, is that they think they're being supportive. And so I think that with that, being supportive versus being enabling, or wherever you're coming from in that, because I think there's 2 camps in that. The enabling because you think you're being supportive and like, you don't want me to beat myself up about it. So you're going to try to make me feel better because maybe you're in a state of mind where you would beat the shit out of yourself for something like that. Or if you came to a realization like that. So I feel like maybe we are inclined because of like, we're programmed to like want to make the other person feel better about them being accountable for whatever they were kind of missing the mark on. And then there's enabling where you're putting a Band-Aid on something, maybe some sort of problem or some aspect of a relationship or an arena in your life where you don't actually want to take on the problem. So you do something to like overcompensate or not have to deal with it in the here and now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's funny because, squeaky toy.
Don't worry, there'll be a cat butt floating by in a few minutes.
Spirit is giving me a lot of opportunities to practice patience today. So, and to choose fun over anything else. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense, right? What I'm hearing you say is there's different flavors of enabling.
Yeah.
that people can bring to their attention. Because here's the thing, let's talk about what enabling means and what it does to people, right? Like enabling is, so Erin's example, which is a beautiful example, Erin was eating a lot of potatoes, which is not the first time that we've come to this conclusion, but that's okay. This is, again, potatoes they're like a golden thread that is interwoven throughout Erin's health and wellness journey. And so what happens is Erin was eating potatoes and was very tired and not feeling so good. And, like emotions, like our mood shifts, our energy shifts. And a natural go-to excuse or reason or explanation could be that Erin is pregnant.
Very.
And yet the truth was she was eating a lot of potatoes. Right. And so when you give and what I love about your story too, is that you had already solved your problem.
Yes.
It's not like you were thinking about solving your problem, which we'll talk about that too, but like you had already solved your problem and people were trying to put that problem back on your plate.
Yeah, it's like potatoes.
You should eat those potatoes. So, because we do this with little things, we do this with big things. So when I tried to quit drinking, so part of the intro I, forgot to mention, I went from which I just sent Erin a picture that I found online. I was sleeping through life, like literally just, and the picture is legitimately me completely passed out.
I've been waiting for my turn with the squeaky toy.
I kind of feel like this is a good opportunity to enable her support. I could but then she just ran away from me. It's really funny. I think she just can't stand not being included. She had to be on the cover of the book.
That's true.
She needs to be included. So she ignores me when I'm not recording. And the minute I record, oh man, I don't even know where. Oh, so drinking. So I legitimately was sleeping through my life. Erin and I would go out, I would drink. I've never stopped after one. I have a lot of addictive energy tendencies. So I had to really learn how to transmute those and harness those over the course of the years of my journey. But when I didn't know how to do that, I would just drink and I would never stop after one. And it got to the point where I remember waking up one day and being like, I don't love being this version of me. I'm going to choose to be a different version of me. Like I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was sick and tired of myself. I was like, it was just one of those, God, there's gotta be another way to this. Right. Mm-hmm. And what ended up happening was I decided I'm going to cut alcohol out of my life. And I don't know that it was a conscious forever decision in that moment, although it ended up turning into one, and it's like 5 or 6 years later now. And it was a moment, though, that was so profound that I decided I'm going to cleanse it. I think I originally was like, I'll start for, 28 days. I'll start for 3 months. I'll start for whatever. Mm-hmm. And people started to try to talk me out of quitting drinking.
Just one drink. It's fine if you just have a glass of wine.
It is. I'm pretty sure it's 6 years, but it's 5 or 6 years because I'm pretty sure it coincides with Lennon, okay. With my nephew. And so he's 6. And so I feel like it's like tied right around to his birthday. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 6 years. So it's 6 years later and people still do that to me. Like, oh, I don't drink. Oh, oh, why is that? Did you go through a program? No, I didn't go through a program, but similar mannerisms as alcoholism, right? Like I can't stop one, so I'm not going to do it. And people are like, well, you can have one. It's fine. You can have one. It's unbelievable. Like
I've never been at Shortstop with you.
Yeah. The bar that we used to go to. Yeah, I can't. I just never stopped after one. I just never did. There are certain things I don't stop after one. I don't stop after one coffee. I don't stop after one TV show. I don't stop. You know what I mean? There are certain things that's just like, I just can't have them. It's like, no, take it out. No TV, no, no coffee, no, and the reason is don't serve me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we're really on the hunt for people to be looking for is what is it that you see is not serving other people,
Mm-hmm.
and learn to support them, not to enable them, right? And so what you were describing is the flavors of enablement, which are people pleasing,
Mm-hmm.
not feeling comfortable allowing other people their own discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one.
Yeah, I think, and that's exactly it, because it makes you uncomfortable, and I think that's like it with the drinking, and I mean, even besides seeing it with you, where people would be like, "Don't you judge me?" It's like you see the projection of other people on like their thoughts and their feelings and what they're rooted in coming out on you. And I think sometimes it's really well intended, and sometimes it's not. So it's almost like they wanted to allow you to tell you it was okay to have one drink because they thought like you were being too hard on yourself or something.
Yeah, when really I had identified something that was no longer serving me. Same thing with the potatoes, or just giving you some examples. When we identify things that are legitimately no longer serving us, oftentimes what ends up happening is people don't know. It's like your change makes other people uncomfortable, as if your change has anything to do with them. You know, it's like I'm vegan, and it's amazing how much people find that uncomfortable. Like, it's my body, it's my choice. I'm the one living in it, and it makes people uncomfortable, right? So there's a lot of this thing where it's like when we notice something about someone else that they're doing, learning to like really detach ourselves from what's ours and what's other people's. Right? Like your potato thing, I'm going to laugh at you because it isn't serving you. And I'm glad that you realized it. And also to give yourself permission to like laugh at yourself a little bit. Right? And, so there's also this piece where we're coming into this energy of like, there's an element of supporting people that is going to require us to get uncomfortable. Because what that's going to mean is that we're going to love people in a new way. And I talk about this a little bit in the book, where it's like, it's a way where we don't get into the box with someone else, and also where we basically say, there's a layer of love where you end up being in a space where you're going to hold a safe, sacred cocoon for someone to be able to step into a version of themselves that is their best version of themselves. So like, let me give you an example of what some of the things that I've noticed that people enable one another instead of support. And one of those is victima. Like, or victimo for the gentleman watching. There's an avatar that is a low vibration that feels very helpless and hopeless and poor me and woe is me and why is this happening, on and on and on. Yeah. And a piece of this is us realizing that when someone is experiencing that vibration, you can actually choose how you interact with that person. And if you start going into the victima or victimo convention with them, oh, that's so bad, or oh, me too, and you start to create connections on this low vibration, you're enabling that person to not own their power and to not be a version of themselves that they love to be. When you don't engage with it, it's going to be uncomfortable as shit. Right? It's kind of like when you give someone a compliment and they're like, oh, you look really beautiful. And they're like, oh, I'm a cow. And you're like, versus, oh, you're not a cow. You know what I mean? So it's, you have to give people permission that if they're going to create discomfort in their life, to allow them to actually feel it, instead of, which is actually supporting, right? Like, I'm supporting you in who you actually want to be. If you tell me you want to have this amazing life and you want to feel beautiful, if I coddle you every time you tell me you don't feel beautiful, then I'm not allowing you the discomfort that it's going to take for you to have to sit in to get the soul growth that you want.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting you say that, because people do that with different goals. Like, we're in January, right? So everyone's like, hashtag new year, new me. And they're like, they want to eat healthier, they want to work out, they want to do these things, right? Or they want to quit smoking, or, whatever their habit, they want to take their business to the next level. And so you might have a friend, where they're verbalizing their goals to you, and then if you are being supportive, you may call them out or say like, hey, what you're doing is not in line with your goals. Now, a really good example of this is actually my husband. There have been times that I'm like, I'm going to do this diet in years past, and he would be like, hey, what happened to that diet? Like, when I was eating something, he's like, that's not on your diet. And I would get pissed at him. And so then you have people who essentially get mad at the people who are showing them support. Because I get pissed and be like, you're not supporting me. Like, I don't, and he's like, I am supporting you. And like, this just came to me like right now. And I'm like, there are plenty of times when my husband has given me the hard truth about something. And I'm like, I don't need that from you. I need you to be on my team. And I need you to support me. And he's like, I am. I'm like, I need you to be my husband.
Enable me, damn it.
Exactly. And he's like, I am. This is what a husband is supposed to do. And I'm like, fuck you. That's not what I want. And then I run away and pout and go upstairs and go to bed. Shit.
My favorite part of what you're doing right now is that you're in the moment of a total aha. Like, if you're watching, I just know Erin well enough, but like, Erin is having this moment right now where she's calling, it's like, as we're talking, this is the beauty of this work. As she is vocalizing this is not the first time, this is the first time that this is coming out of her mouth, and she's
Totally.
and she's connecting dots. She's like, this dot with the, oh my God, I'm an asshole. Yeah, okay, that's what's happening. Yeah, okay.
Yes, for sure. I'm glad everyone got to experience that. But like, that is the awesome thing about when you get to a place where you're not you're not mentally terrorizing yourself over these things, where it's just kind of funny and you're like, oh man, I was being a total ass, But like, there are times in the relationship that my husband is the total supporter and I'm the total enabler.
Yes, and again, it's just giving ourselves permission to explore, where we play the role of enabler, where we play the role of supporter. We're doing both, right? So as we do this, don't be on the hunt for everything you're doing wrong, right?
Yeah.
You can be on a treasure hunt for opportunities of where you might be enabling so that you can turn it into support. Just know you're doing both. And you're not consciously enabling someone in bad behavior. One of the things, so let's give you an example of support, because as you're talking, I think that's really cool. So Erin and I lately have been having moments where, this is Brené Brown's quote that I love so much. I genuinely strive to lean into it. I don't always get it right, but well, I don't always nail it, if you will, but because there is no right or wrong, but is choosing discomfort over resentment, right? And so sometimes it's allowing yourself to choose discomfort over allowing the other person to sabotage themselves, And so there have been times this week. So like today, as an example, Erin invited me to do a workout challenge with her. And my immediate ninja mind that like wants to keep me small and, safe and, warm and fuzzy in my comfort zone. The immediate thing I heard was, I don't have time. And so what I started doing with Erin, because I have this type of relationship with Erin, is I explained every piece of my ninja mind to her. And then I also sent her probably 20 text messages in a row, because you can't, you could just annoy each other. And that they'll get a good laugh out of it. But basically started going on and on about how I didn't have any time, which is like purposefully, which is really funny because of course I have time if I'm sending you 20 text messages. So it was a good way for us to be able to see for each other. Like, even if I told Erin no, like, oh, no, I don't want to do that, which we've done before. It's like Erin would have been like, oh, no, you don't have time, but you can do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? And then I'd be like, shut up, I hate you. And then I join our group. So a piece of this is as you learn in partnership, like one of the beautiful pieces about true partnership, so I'm a life coach, right? So part of the partnership I offer people is accountability. In friendships, that's one of the things I think is really cool about our friendship as it's evolved is we're creating partnerships. We're creating a deeper kinship. And a part of that is accountability. And a part of accountability means supporting people and mirroring back their bullshit, which we talked about on that last webisode, right? Is you're buying your own bullshit. So part of support is not buying people's bullshit, not buying their excuses, and looking for where they're handing their power away. So when you notice that someone is blaming other people for their own misery, and you're like, oh, yeah, you're right, that's so bad, I can't believe that's happening. All you're doing is telling that person, and you're not consciously doing it, but what you're basically doing is telling that person, yeah, you're right, you have no control over your life, and it's happening to you, and you have no power. You're basically telling the person they're weak. When you're enabling someone, you're basically telling them you don't think they're strong enough. Like energetically, you're telling them you don't think they're strong enough to handle that. Versus being direct and honest and nudging and pushing people in the direction of what they have said themselves that they actually want.
Yes. And I think that's really important. Two things for me is one thing, like we're obviously on a level where like we know how to support each other in a way, like we know how to support each other and nudge each other and hold each other accountable, even though it might trigger each other, but like we're in that space. So like I'm not going to call my coworkers out on everything. You know what I mean? If they say that, because like I don't have that relationship and that rapport with them. The same way that I might discuss things with you. Or that, you know, right, we're not talking like start going on the hunt for things you're doing wrong or what other people are saying that are incongruent with maybe what they want. Now, if they're asking for it or if someone's complaining to you about it, you know, I kind of try to preface that. You're different because you're a life coach, but it's like, do you want my opinion? You know, like your segue into that is usually, can I mirror something back? And I'm like, fuck, fine. You know, but like, or like, do you want my opinion? And if they're like, no, I'm like, all right, cool. You know, I've had to go on because in my younger years, I used to want to spout my knowledge of what I thought the situation was with everybody. So I've been trying to, you know, rein it in and only save it for those who really want it. Which is, you know, funny though, because doing these accountability groups and being a health and fitness coach and with Beachbody, it's like you have people sign up for it. The accountability is part of it. And then you hold them accountable and they're like, you're not being supportive. And I'm like, said you wanted to lose weight. I'm just seeing how it's going with you with that. Or you wanted to be active or, you know, you wanted to run a marathon. Like that's actually part of the job, you know, which is being supportive, but they want to be enabled. And then the other thing where I was going with that is I think it's important to know that even if you're in a relationship, like a tight one like us, or you've got an accountability partner and they're calling you out on something or being supportive, it's very natural to have a moment of go fuck yourself for that other person. Because you were pretty honest in sending me the text. You know, and being like, I kind of wanted to tell you to go fuck yourself, but then, you know, it's whatever. And then, you know, there were emojis and things flying across the screen. So it was funny. And I'm like, that's cool. Because when you called me out of my shit in October, I totally wanted to tell you to GFY too. So I think it's normal though. And people think that like, if you're being supportive and you're in this like, you know, safe cocoon, like you're never going to feel like that for a moment. You are. And that's okay. And I mean, clearly I felt that at my husband quite a few times when he was trying to support me, when I was asking him to enable me.
You're not being a supportive husband. He's like, that's exactly what I'm being right now, actually.
Totally.
So what you're giving a really beautiful layer and piece of this. Two pieces I'm hearing you say is, one is you don't necessarily have to mirror back everyone's BS, right, to people.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm still learning, to shut my mouth. But the thing is that you also don't have to be an active enabler. So you can choose just not to engage, if someone is complaining, like, you don't have to jump in the complaining bucket with them. You don't have to jump on the bandwagon of connection. It's like we're so afraid to break connection with people. We're so afraid to let people maybe not like us that we start doing things that aren't even good for us. It enables them and us. It creates just a lower vibration. If someone's complaining, if someone's blaming, if someone's whining, if someone is doing an action that's clearly not aligned with what they're saying that they want. So you don't have to mirror back to everyone. At the same time, you don't have to be an active participant in enabling. And you can create conscious partnerships with people that you would like to create conscious partnerships by asking and or giving permission. So, Erin and I have an open agreement with one another to share things. Although I know when I'm going to trigger Erin. Like I sent you a message the other day, and like I immediately got a response back that was a trigger. And so I asked Erin if she could she was already doing a ton of things. And I was like, ooh, this is great. Maybe she could share one thing a day that she's doing with me and with one of my girlfriends so that we could do it as well along with her and she could inspire us. What Erin heard was, you want to add one more thing to my plate. So she told me she's a mom and she's this, and she went on a whole long list of all the things. And then when I mirrored back lovingly, so it was one of those moments where it was like, I knew that I had to lovingly mirror it back. And I was like, oh, actually, like, you're already inspiring me. You're already doing it. I'm just asking you to share it. And then she was like, oh yeah, my bad.
Totally.
So it's that fine finesse. And there's a piece about giving people permission. Like, you can openly say, I said this to someone the other day. There's this goal group that I go to every Monday. And we sit and we talk about our goals and what actions we're going to take. And I went into a little bit of overwhelm and ended up backing out of something that I actually wanted. Like, I wanted something, I manifested people to do it with me, and then I backed out. I just got overwhelmed. And so I pulled the guy aside at one of the recent meetings, and I was like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm really sorry. I got overwhelmed. I really wanted this. And then I backed out, and I was just overwhelmed. He said, I know, I saw it happening. And I was like, next time, just call me out on my bullshit. And he was like, and so it's giving him permission. Like, hey, I'm giving you permission.
Right.
I want you to push me. I always tell people in my circle, please push me. Please tell me when I'm doing things that aren't aligned. Like, I'm not going to like it. I talk about this in the book too. Like, of course, there are going to be times where you're going to be like, why did I ask people to do this? It's going to suck. Like, you're going to be invited to do workout stuff that, like, of course, like, I'm going to do it anyways. Right. But it's just like, it's better if it's tomorrow. Yeah. Tomorrow sounds good. But then when your friend's like, let's do it today. And you're like, I'm real busy doing nothing.
I've got a lot of things going on.
I'm so busy. I have to send you 20 text messages to prove how busy I am, because it'll be fun. So yeah, giving ourselves permission, and also trusting your intuition on when to actually be a little bit more leaning into the, like, I'm going to hold this line on this, versus then like flipping into allowing it to be a loving mirror back.
I have also noticed that when people are checking you for whatever you wanted to do or whatever you're trying to create, in myself, and I know it happens to other people, and that's part of maybe the reaction, or like the response I gave you the other day. I'm running around, I'm at Target, both my husband and my son are sick, so I'm trying to get all of this stuff for them. An arsenal of stuff to make sure that they're well taken care of. I'm doing this and doing that, and I'm flying around. And I wasn't in a state of overwhelm, so it was very interesting, because I felt very like in the zone and like in a place where I was caring for them, but excited to do so, because I've been protective of caring for myself for so long now that I'm like happy to care for them. So, but I'm walking through and I'm doing that. And yeah, like I had started up the challenge group. I was in another challenge group that was specifically for like coaches, and then this one got added. And there was like a momentary panic of, I've got 4 groups. How am I going to keep up with it? What if I fail? And it was like a quick panic of like the like shame/fail that washed over me. And then right when you brought me back to earth, I was like, okay, all right, we're good. But that's happened with other things when people are checking me specifically with my support. It's like Brene Brown talks about it, I think it's not Braving the Wilderness is the new one, Rising Strong, where she starts talking about getting used to what shame physically feels like when it washes over you, because people have physical reactions to that. Like some people's armpits get sweaty, some people's face gets red, some people's heart races. And so what I've noticed with me is that my armpits start sweating immediately. So like if somebody sends me something or calls me out on that, before I would have been like, it would have been go fuck yourself real fast, and I would have been super reactive. Whereas now, like I remember you sending me a text where you were just like, you know, establishing boundaries for what we're creating together that were going to help move this forward. And when I read the first 2 lines, I had to stop because I wasn't going to have enough time to digest it. And I could already feel my armpits sweating, and I knew that wasn't obviously your intention, but I have become conscious of it. So I had to be like, I need to be in a place where I can sit with those feelings for a hot minute and then move past it. But that's helped a lot too, because then I just recognizing the shame that goes along with it really quickly to be like, I'm not doing what I said I was doing, or I'm not on track, or I'm failing, or I'm not enough. Like, all right, sit with it, notice it, there it is, and then it'll move to the side, and then you can go forward with whatever you want or need in the moment. I don't know. That's how I've been feeling.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'm hearing you say is to just observe how, when someone is trying to support you, how your body responds. Our body is really intelligent, and so our body can actually be a clue for us of what is happening. And because that's the thing too, right? Like if you're going to create epic partnerships, whether it's romantic, whether it's friends, whether it's with family, whether it's with, you know, people in business, is if you're going to be asking for support, then you need to receive it.
Yeah. Right.
And so, it's also a lot of that is in taking the time to realize what's the difference between me being triggered and reacting versus me responding.
Right.
And taking like figuring out what you actually need in order to be able to receive the support. So, which also asking for permission is a piece of that, right? Like if someone, you know, and or understanding what you may need in the future, right? Like if there's something at any point you ever need from me as your accountability buddy, your accountability partner, is to let the person know, like, hey, you know what would actually help me receive this even more would be this. Now, here's what's interesting though, is there's a sneaky thing you have to watch for when you're asking for modifications to how you're receiving the support and truths from other people. If that's what you've asked them for, if you're in partnership and you have an agreement, like I would like you to mirror back anything that's getting in my way, or, you know, whatever your agreement is, where there's a version of you that doesn't actually want to make the change. So it doesn't actually want to hear the truth. So it's going to start asking for softeners.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, if you could just tell me in like a way that is more loving, or if you could tell me in a way, you know, if you could just make it funny, or if you could make it, you know, and like trying to control the truth coming in, and just being aware of that there's a sneaky energy underneath that's actually saying, like, if you could not really support, like if we could pretend that we're supporting one another but I'm going to make it uncomfortable for you to support me. So I'm going to keep changing these pieces up here, and I need you to do it a certain way. And I have all these rules of how you can support me. You're basically just creating, you know, if you have any rules, if you have too many rules around it, right, you're basically creating all these ways not to support you.
Yeah.
You know, instead of just being like, what do you actually want and need? And so there is something about allowing the fluidity of, I mean, the truth sometimes can hurt.
Yeah.
For me, an epic partner is going to tell me the truth. And they're not, also what I'm hearing you say is not taking it personal, right?
Yeah.
Like you just described too, you had all these, like, it's like whatever is going on in your world, when someone delivers the support or the truth or whatever it is, then it's like, that's going to impact how you receive it in that moment. And so as someone who is on the accountability journey with you, it's knowing that if you're the one who's delivering the accountability for someone, because that's what, you know, so like you said, you when you're hosting challenge groups, when I'm coaching clients, it's like, if that's the agreement that we have, is that we're going to be the ones that are going to lovingly hold you accountable, then when someone is triggered and not enjoying the accountability or support that you're giving them, or the truth or what have you, realize it's not personal. It's something I also, you know, I'm human. I have to navigate the complexities of that as well. But it's something I'm seeing more and more and more, is not taking it so personal when you're triggering someone, especially when you're trying to support them. Like when your genuine intention is to support them and move them forward and they're triggered, it's like not getting in the trigger box with them.
Yeah, that's pretty hard sometimes, right? Because for sure, not taking it personal, or then not making yourself responsible for whatever their goal was, or whatever they were saying that they wanted. Because I think that's a habit people can get into, and then that leads into enabling. So what's your opinion on enabling, as far as, how do I put this? Well, I don't know. Let's talk about enabling as far as like what that looks like in everyday life, or what that looks like, or what you see it to, or what you perceive it to be as when we're enabling people.
So, a lot of things. Well, one is like, and we saw an example of this today, but you know, if someone is asking you for a push or support, if someone says, hey, you know, help me do something. And then people actually give you reasons why you don't need to do that. Okay. Like to me, that's enabling, right? Like someone's actually asking you for support. They're like, and then you're actually giving them. So it's the same thing with the potatoes, right? Where it's like, you had already come up with a solution for your own problem. Yeah. And people were then giving you all these reasons and justifications why you didn't need to do something. It's interesting. Enabling in my life shows up where, like, if I'm at a place and so like eating carrot cake is going to make me kind of sick. Eating pizza is going to make me kind of sick. I mean, I have like intolerances to a lot of different things. I have found out what works really well for my body. And yet I notice that if there is someone who is with me and I'm like, okay, don't let me eat that cake. Yeah. And they're like, oh, you know what though? Like you should totally indulge. And you know what? I think that you eat so clean and you should treat yourself. And, you know, and like, you're basically telling me it's okay for me to make myself sick, you know? And granted, that's my responsibility to make sure that I feel the way that I love feeling. At the same time, like if I'm around someone enough that is like, if I'm around someone who is a pretty epic enabler, I can't be around them for very long because it just means I have to exercise my free will 10 times more than I would have to if I wasn't around that person. Right? Yeah. Another way of enabling would be if if I am in a situation where I'm upset about something and I am completely, I don't know, it's funny because I don't usually not take ownership. I usually take too much ownership. I don't know. I just like, if there's behavior where if I'm doing something and you're like if I'm complaining about something, I actually appreciate, to me it's supportive if you pattern interrupt me. I'm at the point in my life where I'm able to pattern interrupt myself, but what I see sometimes is like if I so much as complain about a little something, I notice that there are some individuals who like are like excited to see me complain because I don't do it very often, and they want to jump in with me. And then they start complaining, and then I'm like, oh crap, I started this complaint storm that wasn't my intention, you know, or like if I'm upset about something, or if I'm irritated, or if I, you know, and so enabling would be jumping in it with me. And allowing that to grow and expand, as opposed to not getting in my box with me, and or having the courage to trigger me a little bit and be like, hey, you're complaining. And my victima might be like, well, but I just want to complain, you know, like let me versus, you know, and in that moment I could just say, you know what, I just need to vent. Can I have 5 minutes to vent, and then let it out. That's very different. So
that's true. And then you've also put conditions on your period of time though, to be like, this is what I get. So if you're still going 10 minutes later, all right, you know, like, hey, you passed you're entering into victima mode. She's off the bench, she's stolen the ball, and she's slam dunking. So that's very interesting. Some of the patterns that I see and that I have experienced in the past, and the reason that this is coming up for me is I think because what I was talking about earlier with like caring for my son and my husband, is people doing things like you mentioned. And I think as women, we're kind of prone to this. We're programmed to be like hostesses and kind of servant-like. So we will do things because it is easier for us to just do it, instead of having maybe the hard conversation or like feeling the discomfort of having your partner or whoever else you're in whatever agreement with pull more of their weight, or, you know, something like that. So I see it with kids. I see it with husbands and spouses, where they will complain about their husband not doing something, or not pulling their weight when they needed support. But then they go and they do whatever. They go and they do it anyway. So they might say like, hey, I need to go run out and grocery shop. Or they want time by themselves, or they want something. And they want their husband to take, you know, like they want them to like just take the kids so that they can do whatever, but then they end up taking the kids to the grocery store with them. And I'm like, you're never gonna get what you want, because you keep what you're verbalizing and what you're doing are two totally different things. So if like you're sending mixed messages, and I see people do that with, and then they become resentful, like you were talking, by choosing comfort in the moment, they become resentful over time. And so where that came full circle for me, really today, I was feeling super, super grateful because, you know, I'm a nurse, I'm a caregiver by nature. We've talked about this. My mom energy is super strong. I want to like take care of everybody. And by take care, I mean, I want to enable a lot of people, in which I thought I was supporting them. But, you know, you run yourself into the ground. So then you end up like, by being protective of time for myself, whether it is to work out, meal prep, wake up early and have time to myself, or to read personal development and to do those things, to make sure I'm scheduling like haircuts or whatever makes me feel sexy, or, you know, keeps me like in a place where I'm caring for myself has allowed me to, and don't get me wrong, like my husband's super supportive. He's wonderful about that kind of stuff. But, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, you're going to go get your hair cut. Like, can't you go do it when he's taking a nap? And I'm like, no. And I get that. But doing that then allowed me when they were both sick, and he was so ill yesterday. I just felt so bad for him that I was actually so happy to take care of them both. Like, I was in such a different place because I have created this for myself to care for myself, that when I needed to completely take over the household and like all responsibilities so he could rest and relax and sleep and get better, like I wasn't resentful at all. I wasn't like, oh, there he is laying on the couch. I was like, go sleep. I'll take him out of the house. I'll go do this. I'll go run and get medicine. I'll whatever. So I thought that was really interesting because by doing the hard things, it allowed me to be better and more grateful in other arenas of my life or modes that you have to switch into as a parent or a wife or a partner.
Yeah, that's so true, right? Like when you enable behavior that's actually not healthy for the relationship because you're too uncomfortable to speak up, you know, this is like, I find it really sexy when someone tells me what they want and need, and when they tell me something they don't like or they do, because then I don't have to read your mind. It also makes me feel safe that you can create that you're not going to resent me later, right? Like you're choosing the uncomfortable thing. So whether that's like, you know, I say sexy because if it's like in a relationship, like I think that's sexy. If it's in a friendship, I feel like, oh yes, like that's one of the things I love about our friendship is I know that at some point pretty quickly that you'll tell me if something is bothering you, right? So instead of enabling a behavior that I may or may not even know is potentially interrupting our ability to connect. And yes, right, is people are so afraid, they're so in fear of breaking rapport that they would rather keep a facade of rapport even when they're not getting their own needs met, so that they don't have to have the uncomfortable conversation and or be uncomfortable and let that other person be uncomfortable because they're going to do something for themselves. And so what's also interesting, what that brings up is I'm getting this vision. I remember when I was in the sales world, so I was in the corporate world for 8+ years before I left. And I was a leader of a sales team, and I had 6 reps that I managed. And I remember being in the airport with one of them because we all traveled together. And there was a gentleman who kind of like was listening to our conversation, and he just goes, "Man, you don't even see what's happening, do you?" And I was like, what am I missing? And what I realized as I started to just bring some awareness to the situation was my sales rep would pretend like he didn't know what he was doing. Yeah. So that I would do it. Yeah. And so I was enabling this behavior. I mean, what a brilliant individual to just like, oh, if she's going to do it, you know? So he'd be like, how do you do this? Could you show me? Why don't you just show me? And then, you know, and it's something too, it's like if you're parenting, if you're in leadership, or if you have, you know, if you run a business, it's like you've got to learn to allow other people to do stuff and learn. And again, that goes back to allowing discomfort. Yeah. It's allowing space for people to figure out their own stuff. And so when you realize that your responsibility, I think a big thing with support and enabling is really determining what is my responsibility. Yeah. And what's not, and making sure you're only taking what is your responsibility and having upfront agreements. So if you're in a relationship, you know, someone may think something is your responsibility that's not, that you don't actually feel is yours, and you can talk about it. But a piece of enabling would be avoiding conversations. Enabling would be allowing behavior to continue that's actually not healthy behavior for the relationship, because you're not finding the courage within you to just ask for what you want, say what you need. And this happens in the workplace. Mm-hmm. This happens in romantic relationships. This happens in families. So I love that, right? Where people, I don't love that it's happening, but I love that you brought that up, is that People are choosing comfort over and over and over again. People are choosing to avoid. People are choosing silence. People are choosing self-sacrifice. People are choosing pain. People are they're choosing all of those things because of a fear of breaking rapport, a fear of discomfort. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? The relationship's not going to succeed anyways. You're going to be way more uncomfortable being in either a relationship that is mediocre at best or staying in a job that sucks your soul. Like that's going to, the detriments of choosing comfort over and over in a compounding way will lead you to a life that is soul sucking, that is mediocre, that is meh and bland and blah, you know? And like, that is not what we are about in our tribe, which is why we're having this conversation. It's about having courage to do something different. So it's, you know, Albert Einstein, you can't solve the equation or whatever it is that you're trying to shift. You can't shift into that in the old identity. And the old identity, the old energetic vibration that we typically reside in is one of enabling, and we're not consciously doing it. We're choosing comfort over and over and over again instead of finding the courage to say, okay, what's a new way of doing this?
Yeah.
And looking at like getting really conscious, create your own definitions for this, right? Like this is the beauty in life. Like who cares what a dictionary says? Look at what is behavior that is not serving you or serving other people, and you get to decide what that means and what that is. That's what's so beautiful. Like, you notice I talk a lot about complaining or victima, or because I know I coach people all the time at victima or victimos, and I see that those are the things that are holding people back from the very thing that they want because they're not owning their power. And I teach them how to own their power. So for me, you know, and also to your point, like choosing comfort over and over and over and over again versus, right? So it's like, to me, that's enabling. And supporting is saying, well, first of all, asking the whoever, what do you want?
Yeah.
And like, that's the thing too. We're not even having conscious conversations in our friendships, in our romantic relationships, in our family ships. We're not in our business relationships. We're not having conscious conversations. Like, what do you want? Mm-hmm. How can I support you? What do you need? Mm-hmm. Even if you just did that in the course of the next week, you just started asking people like, hey, you know what? I'd love to support you. How can I support you? What helps you feel supported? Are there any actions? Hey, what are your dreams? What are your goals? Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you're trying to pattern break that I could help mirror back to you? Like conscious partnership. So support is conscious. Enabling is comfort.
Yeah. And I think when you're trying to break out of the pattern of enabling, so one of the things that I read in a parenting book that I read about, like, when Luke was, younger and started throwing temper tantrums, and how to break that pattern early and not end up in a bad place where like you're basically, you know, your kid's having these massive rageful fits because he knows he gets what he wants. I'm like, okay, I'm going to read this book. It was highly recommended by my pediatrician. But the line that sticks out, and I love the method, it's super easy and wonderful and effective. But the line that sticks out for me in the whole book that I loved the most was basically this psychologist said the best thing you can do for your kids is to let them do whatever they're capable of doing for themselves. And I was like, wow, you know, so there's a lot of things with him that I love, besides the fact that I find it fascinating to see his little brain work and him figure things out and him do things differently. And, you know, just figured out is like having that room for him, that error. Like we're so patient with children, not always, but we're so patient to be like, oh yeah, you got to learn to tie your shoe or you got to potty train. Like, yeah, sometimes it's frustrating for sure, you know, but we're so much more patient to allow them, like if you allow them to figure out how to do things on their own. But I do see sometimes, and I should say more than sometimes, where it's like, it's just easier for me to pull his pants up. It's just easier for me to tie his shoe. it's easier for me to pick out his clothes, and he's going to match better, and he's going to this. But is that what's best for him? Because all of a sudden you have a 9-year-old who you're still picking out their clothes for them. And then you've done all of these things, and we've talked about this in other episodes. And then you put an adult into the world, and you say, go to college at 18, now figure yourself out and be an adult. And then when we have, some young adults or 20-year-olds who are having a difficult time knowing what they want, doing things for themselves, and functioning independently, when it's like, we co-created that as parents, and so where else are we potentially doing that in relationships? And so I've kind of internalized that and tried to use that in other areas, where it's like, I know you're capable of this. Me doing it for you all the time is not helping either of us. It's not growing your confidence in it, which I know you're capable. It's not making me feel supportive and that, the roles are balanced. So I just think that's a really interesting concept, but I feel like what comes up a lot with it when you're trying to practice it, like a lot of the things we've talked about, is that, people will tell you you're selfish. And you start getting those blocks from people where oh, you're selfish for not enabling me. Or you're being judgmental for calling me out on my bullshit that you kind of asked me to call. Maybe you've asked me to call out or whatever, if you're being supportive. So, and like you had said, not taking that personally, but understanding that that's going to come up. And that it's not going to be you're not going to walk out of your house one day and the birds are landing on your fingers and you're like, you're not following your diet plan like you wanted. And the person riding their bike by is like, thanks, Erin, going on, the music's playing and you're like, you're not doing this. And they're like, all right, you're high-fiving on the way out. That's not how it's going to go.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too, is understanding that everything that we've been sharing in all of these webisodes, we're just trying to give you tools to practice. You're gonna try to support someone and they're gonna be triggered and you're gonna be like, oh my God, I didn't do that right. And then later the person's gonna come back to you and be like, and sometimes they never do, right? But in my experience, what I have seen is after someone reacts, so give people space to react before they respond. Be pretty generous, and allow them the space to just really navigate. I know I'm one of those people that sometimes it might take me, I need to, like you said, I take the time, I kind of figure it out, and then I call myself out on my own. I own it, even if I didn't tell you out loud. I'm like, so internal, here's what happened. And I do that because it really just liberates me. So just understanding, these are just little pieces that you can play with and practice with to go, okay, where am I supporting? Where am I enabling? We give you a lot of different things that you could just look at and then just cool, how might I be able to create more support? How might, it's a spectrum. We get to constantly work towards the direction of life and thriving that we actually want to experience. And so constantly looking at how do I create more supportive relationships? And yes, there's that piece around, if you are being helpful, are you really being helpful? And what's your intention? And if your intention, if you're being really honest with yourself, if your intention for being helpful is because it makes you feel significant and it makes you feel needed, then that's enabling, right? Right. So unless the person is openly asking, and that's another thing too. I was very independent as a child. I know you were as well. Yeah. And I enjoy figuring things out myself. And I know that irritates a lot of people, especially if you derive significance from being helpful. And so it's interesting. I have triggered a lot of people in my lifetime because they want to, I'm trying to figure something out. I don't know, if I'm trying to figure something out and I'm like, I can't get this to work. And they want to jump in. And I'm like, I got it. I got it. Because I genuinely enjoy that process. I enjoy it, And so there are some times where my do-it-all girl avatar is kicking in and I need support. And so I need to learn to ask for it, for sure. I'm well aware. And there are also these times I just enjoy figuring things out for myself. I just always have. And I know that then there are people that they want to help because it makes them feel good. It makes them feel significant to help. And I am not receiving it because I am doing my own thing and I'm triggering people. So it's just interesting. It's just paying attention to getting more conscious around, why are you doing what you're doing? Right. And there's always another way to do it. Anything else that you want to share before we wrap up?
No, I guess I was just going to say to you like to do things, and you like to do things, and when people are encroaching on your ability to figure, or like want to figure something out, I'm totally somebody that, like, my whole life people have come to me for things, whether it's, you know, advice or like knowledge on something or whatever. So I'm actually on the other end of the spectrum, which is interesting that you say that, because I have done a lot of practice in recent of not interjecting my opinion or my help with people unless they ask for it. Like, so I'm getting better at recognizing that, or then asking for the permission of, like, do you want my opinion, or do you want my advice, or I'm here if you need me. And like, that's kind of it. So it's interesting to hear you say that. Damn, it's such an enabler. Yeah, that's not it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all this is, and this is the whole purpose of this. We're just being generous with sharing, you know, ways that we've identified in our own lives that we're getting in our own way.
Yeah.
Having a good sense of humor about it, so that, you know, you all listening and watching can really just identify for yourselves, what do you want to be more of, and how can you consciously create that? You are the master creator of your life, and you get to consciously architect what you experience. And these little tiny life hacks that we keep giving you are just things to practice. And as you increase your consciousness, you're going to increase your confidence. And for me personally, I believe that true success in life is how much you enjoy, how much time you spend enjoying being you, whether that is who you are, whether that's being in the body that you're in, whether that's what you're experiencing. It's just the amount of time that you get to love being you is, like, I feel like that's the most beautiful currency in life. And so to me, that's success. And so that's that's the purpose of taking this journey. So, so if you have any ideas of things that you would like us to touch on, go ahead and leave your comments below, and we will work our magic, and we will see you next time.